Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. My name is Jim Johnson. This is where we turn chaos into wisdom. 25 years ago, in my first chaos report, I wrote, if you begin with failure and learn to evaluate it, you will also learn to succeed. Failure begets knowledge. Out of knowledge, you gain wisdom, and it is with wisdom that you can become truly successful. In this program, we hope to turn chaos into wisdom. In this show, we discuss how artificial intelligence and machine learning in the project management profession. Our special guest of this show is Peter Taylor, and he's author of a new book called AI and the Project Manager. It also has a subtitle, How the Rise of Artificial Intelligence Will Change Your World. He's obviously talking to the project manager in this book. And we will focus on this book and other things about artificial intelligence and project management. We also have Hans Mulder here, our European Research Director and professor at the Antwerp Management School, and he'll be asking a question or two. Plus, we have Kimberly Hurras, and Kimberly is an experienced project manager, and she is a graduate student at Oxford University. Her dissertation is on AI and the project management. So very timely, and I think we're going to learn a lot today. So Peter, what do you want people to take away from this book? Give us an overview, the 5 things that you think they should really focus on, and end with a summary.
I work in a software business. Well, I'm seeing the rise in conversations around AI, artificial intelligence. And I suddenly realized that, well, the world of project management is going to be impacted by this. So I started doing research is too strong a word for me, but I started reading articles, I started looking at things. And I think the first thing I came across was the Gartner one that is heavily quoted, where Gartner described by 2030, 80% of what project managers do today will be done by AI. And I suddenly thought, wow, that's huge. That is absolutely huge. But as I started to read more and more, there was lots of open discussions. Nothing's solidified, nothing's definite. I talked to several project management software developers, suppliers. They are all beginning to investigate as well. And I just felt that as an industry, we needed to understand what's coming on. People started to think about this. And I looked at all the congresses, all the forums, all the conferences at that point, and nothing was being talked about. And I just felt that this was an opportunity to write and learn something. It's an interesting book, I think, in the sense that it cannot possibly be completed because the foundation of it, AI and project management, is moving so quickly that it's almost out of doubt before the time I finish writing it. But I felt it needed to be written so people could start to talk about it.
Okay. So what is the key thing you would like people to take away from the book, besides its moving target?
Well, I think I'd like people, first of all, I'd like people to say AI is coming. All right, let's just resist. There's a chapter in the book called Resistance is Futile, which is taken from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, one of my favorite reads. But that's the first thing, is one, it's coming, so you can't ignore it. Well, you can ignore it, because what this then gives us is an opportunity. And for those who take it seriously, I think it's an opportunity to make a real difference. And for those who decide to ignore it, it's an opportunity for failure in the future. So that's the kind of first thing. I think the other thing is to understand that AI isn't one thing. It's complicated. There's process automation, there's chatbots that, we all know chatbots because we use Amazon or something like that, for example. Process automation, we won't perhaps realize that we know about it, but it's happening all the time behind the scenes of things we engage with. But then there's machine learning, which is where the real power comes from, where if you like, the AI itself is learning to get better and better and better. And then there's the fourth area is the kind of the conceptual autonomous project manager, which doesn't exist and probably perhaps may never exist in any real sense, although people understand the concept of autonomous driving vehicles, for example. So it's a complex thing. So one, understand it. Two, appreciate the opportunity or the potential for failure. Three, delve into its complexity and understand that a little bit more. I think fourth is really, you haven't got long. You know, it's the time is now. This is happening, and all of the technology providers, supporters of the foundations of our project management tools around the world are all working on this, and it's going to be a highly competitive market. And the fifth thing, which I kind of come out of the book at the end, where I talk about the fact that I feel good about this, because even if, as I said, read the Gartner thing, even if 80% is taken away from me as a project manager, if I was still a practicing project manager, I now look after a project management community, but 80% of what you do as a project manager will now be done by AI, and probably will be done better, more accurately, tirelessly. What's this going to do? It's going to put me back to where I started in project management, because I didn't understand anything about project management when I started, but I was reasonably successful. And the reason I was reasonably successful was because I did the only thing I knew, which was I engaged with people. I knew I had to persuade people to help me to make a change. And I think the power of what's coming with AI and project management is it's going to allow project managers to spend more time working with the people, helping them, guiding them, leading them to even greater success. So I think in simple terms, that's what I was kind of suggesting in the book.
It's very conversational, I must say, when I read it.
Yes.
It is, you can tell from what the writing that you're basically talking to people. And so I really like that about the book.
I try and make it conversation, because I think if you make it, yeah, I mean, there are some other books. I'm not saying there's no other books out there. There are very few, but I think that they are quite high-end, complicated, challenging. Nothing wrong with them, but I do try and write books for the masses. I mean, The Lazy Project Manager is the very, very first one, which has been so successful because it is, again, conversational, realistic. It's got honest views of problems, failures I've had in my profession, and people like that. And so I try to do the same thing from the AI book. And Jim, if you've read it, you know that I don't just, these aren't just my views. I reach out to four sort of experts out there, young and old, you know, in the profession, and I look for their insights as well. And that was fantastic as far as formulating my thoughts.
We are taking a break from our show to talk about gaining wisdom from our success ladder benchmark. Every software project has risk. This is a bet, just as much as buying a lottery ticket or going to casino. However, do you know your odds? Do you know how to improve your odds? Our success ladder benchmark gives you your odds of success by profiling your project against 50,000 cases in our chaos database. It also gives you hints on where you can improve your odds. There are only few inputs and 6 runs in the benchmark. After each run, the benchmark will indicate your chances of success. The Success Ladder benchmark is part of our membership. You can benchmark as many projects as you want and even play what-if games. You can change this or change that, and each run will tell you your chances of success. To get your Success Ladder benchmark, go to standishgroup.com. Now back to our show. So if I'm a project manager, should I be scared?
Well, you got a choice, I think, and it comes back to my point about, you know, do you grasp the opportunity or just ignore it, and then you're going to get hit with it, slam when it becomes a reality. I think a sensible project manager shouldn't be scared. I think a weak project manager, from the point of their people skills, yeah, they should be scared, because it's going to expose them even more than they are now, I would think. But if you're a competent project manager and you care about the people and the teams you lead, and you want to do a good job, I think embracing and understanding AI should be nothing to be afraid of. It should be something that should be welcomed.
So one of the things that I kind of look at when we're doing AI and especially machine learning is having a database of projects, and we have 50,000 in our database. How do you get that from individual practices and companies, and to be able to really do machine learning?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it does come down to data, isn't it? And you know, I think the thing that people all understand is the autonomous driving vehicle. And you know, you cannot have a safe vehicle going down the road if it only understands certain data, if it only sees what's on the right-hand side of the road, if it can't see people and stuff like that. A gap in data is not practical in that situation. It's interesting in talking to some of the suppliers who are working on this, that actually what they're saying is for project management, you need a degree of depth, but it's more about the accuracy of the data than the actual depth of the data that you've got. It's round about having the ability to review like projects, like experiences, like environments, and analyze out from that, and then constantly doing that with live projects as they go on at the moment. So it's not, you can't start with no data, absolutely not. But do you need 10 years of data? Not really, not for the machine learning side of things. That's the view anyway of the experts.
Okay. Hans, do you have a question or two? Hans?
Yes, please, Jim. Thank you very much. Because what we see then is in your book is a kind of symbiotic relation between the project manager and his virtual assistant. And you're also talking about education of the learning system by feeding data. Yeah. But what would be the role then of the project manager regarding the learning outcomes? Should you also have, let's say, kind of business ethic as a project manager to guide that artificial intelligence?
Yeah, interesting. Well, I think it's still in the realms of the project manager to undertake some sort of experiential learning, regardless of what AI is learning behind the scenes. And in fact, I think AI itself will bring up some of that. It's almost like the AI will become part of that retrospective process, perhaps. But I still think when I talk about the fact that this will allow people to focus on people, it will allow them to engage and learn from the people, because there's another part to this. I mean, the other book I'm currently writing right now, actually, because I'm actually sort of a founding member of another organization which is looking at project team dynamics and performance, because I think that's the other part of it. So if you've got AI dealing with and I'm going to be honest here, from my point of view, the bit that was pretty boring in project management, if I'm honest, the stuff that I just had to do because I was a project manager, but I didn't love it so much. If AI can deal with that, and I'm free to work with the people, then what I really need to understand is how people feeling, what is their sentiment, what is their engagement levels, what is their focus on the objectivity of the outcomes of what we're doing. And so I think those two things beautifully go hand in hand. And therefore I think still there is a role for the project manager to understand the people and understand how that people dynamic has worked, so they can make things better next time around. So I think there's much learning that can happen during projects.
Well, thank you, Peter, for the answer. Great.
Kimberly, do you have a question you'd like to ask Peter?
I sure do, and I thank you again, Peter, for the opportunity to pick your brain about some of this stuff. So going off, this is in the same vein of the question that Hans asked. In your book, I noticed, because there are some authors that believe that at some point we're going to be able to do general AI, and that
yes,
the AI is going to completely replace the project manager. So the idea of a fully autonomous project manager. You right. Seem to, I mean, and I have a quote from you, we're not going to go all the way towards the autonomous project manager experience. That's your opinion. You just cannot see it. So can you tell us a little bit more about why you feel that way?
I'll qualify that a little bit. I think, so I work in the tech industry, software industry. So our projects range from a simple deployment of a module that has been deployed 1,000 times around the world, all the way up to multi-year programs of activity. Do I think an autonomous project manager could run one of those first grade projects I talked about, which is a straightforward workflow, effectively? Install software. Install software. What am I talking about? I'm a dinosaur. You have your cloud offering there set up there, ready to go. Do step A, do step B, do step C. Have you done that? Have you done that? Yeah. Do I think autonomous project management could handle that? Absolutely, to the point of any major deviation. And I think at that point, then a human has to step in. So I think there is a qualified yes, that could be the case. But I also feel for everything else, then no, I can't see that coming about. I just think there's something about the human nature. There's something about working with people and understanding people, and it's almost like that kind of gut instinct you have occasionally when you get the answer, but is it the right answer? Did you ask the right question? All of that is so complicated that in my mind, I can't see that coming about, nor can I see the investment in technology to do that either. What's the return on the investment? What if I can create a world where, as a project manager, I can now run twice as many projects and still be successful, or more, because I've got AI support? That's phenomenal leap forward. If I can tirelessly learn constantly and tirelessly and consistently project ahead, stuff that as project managers we try to do, but we get buried under other work. If all that is going all the time, I think that's going to be more than enough to satisfy the industry and deliver huge successes.
Thank you, Hans and Kimberly, for being part of the show. You added a lot. And thank you, Peter Taylor, for a great show. And you can get Peter's book, AI and the Project Manager, on Amazon. I want to thank our guest and our panelists for being part of the show. And thank you for being part of the show. And I hope we have given you a few minutes of wisdom. We look forward to seeing you next time on Wisdom Wednesday. This is your host, Jim Johnson.